The predictions about the catastrophe
As another therapy for Ebola is already being tested on Americans with COVID-19, but it's still unclear when any of these treatments will be widely available.
The State Department raised the travel advisory to the highest level, to level 4 in its office.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, the government's top expert on infectious diseases.
Good afternoon, everybody. Dave Holton here with Marketing Ideas for Printers. Thank you for joining me on episode number 23 of the Sell More Printing, got ahead of myself, of the Coronavirus Resources for Printers webinar series. I had a little slip of the tongue. I'll explain that towards the end of the webinar, so consider yourself teased. As always, our goal in these webinars is to provide you with the resources that you need to help navigate through this coronavirus pandemic. There's been a lot happening, and all of a sudden that coronavirus pandemic is fighting for attention as far as what story do we talk about today. But it's still there, and we are talking about that. And so we will be underway with a topic about the Payroll Protection Program in a moment, but just a super quick housekeeping, and I need to play around with my control panels there a bit. There we go. On the screen now is coronavirusresourcesforprinters.com. So I do want to remind you that if you've missed any of the episodes up until this point, you can go here to this website, coronavirusresourcesforprinters.com. All of the recordings are there. For those of you watching this live, you can come back and get the replay. If you're not watching it live, you'll get notified as well. They're all here. We're going to roll today's webinar into that top spot, which is episode number 23. All of the others are following, as well as all of the additional resources that we have made available during this whole series. We will have that short survey afterwards, of course, so we do invite you to stick around for that. It takes just a few seconds of your time, and it's so helpful for us just to get a feel for where you're at with the content that you're getting. That's really the extent of the housekeeping that I need. So I am going to bring you, introduce you to today's guest, someone that I work with every day, every working day that we have here, and that is Joanna Erber. She is the Chief Operating Officer here at Marketing Ideas for Printers, and she's got information for you. She's been studying the Payroll Protection Program for us here at Marketing Ideas for Printers, but also for you too. And there's just a lot of information there. I've already said everything I know about it. I was just able to remember what the acronym stood for, so I'm doing great there. But Joanna, let me get that screen up here, and we're just going to quickly pivot right over to you, and you've got information for us. Matter of fact, we'll get you a quick hello, but I'm going to get that poll up real quick. But go ahead and we'll do your greeting while I launch the poll.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joanna Erber. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Marketing Ideas for Printers, and I'm wearing my finance hat today. And I'd like to share with you what I've learned in these past few weeks and as recent as yesterday regarding the loan forgiveness of the payroll protection funding that you may have received. Over 4.5 million loans totaling over $510 billion, that's just crazy, have been granted through this program, and this is truly a historical time. I've attended 2 webinars on this topic over the last couple weeks. The first was put on by the Printing Industry Midwest, May 21st, and the second was put on by Alaris Financial. That's where we do our business banking, about a week ago. Of course, while these 2 webinars were presented, Congress was in their process of approving a new bill, meaning more changes would be coming as to the forgiveness application form, the requirements, the deadlines, etc. The revisions were actually signed into law last Friday, so they are official now, and the revisions are good. They're making it easier for businesses to have the loans forgiven.
So let's pause there for a minute. And before we get into all those details, I would like to see where our audience is at. So here comes a poll, and just tell us where you're at with the payroll protection program. Here it comes. And so go ahead and fill out those answers. What has the payroll protection program meant to you? It's a pretty big deal. I really can't imagine ever seeing anything like this before, but it's a pretty big deal. I guess we'll just say that. So it looks like the answers are rolling in. Let's see where we're at. I'm going to close that poll now and get a feel for where everyone is at. Here are the results. Some did not apply for assistance. Some applied but did not receive funds. Some received funds, would have still been okay. And then there's the big finish that I would only imagine that everyone was hoping for, from government to businesses. I received funds. Thank goodness, I'd be sunk without it. Looks like that's where most of you landed here today. Joanna, back to you.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start off by sharing what those congressional changes included. The PPP loan periods have been extended from the original 8 weeks to 24 weeks or December 31st, 2020, whichever comes first. This gives you more time to spend the money to achieve the forgiveness criteria. For instance, spending the money on payroll will be easier because you have a lot more time to spend it. Now, only 60% of the PPP loan has to be spent on payroll. Originally, it was 75% in order to be forgiven. Consequently, 40% of the loan can be spent on non-payroll expenses such as rent, mortgage, interest, and utilities. There will not be proportional forgiveness if the 60% payroll figure is not met because companies have a longer period in which to spend the money on payroll. That will make it easier to calculate. Headcount for full-time equivalent employees, which previously had to be restored by June 30th, is now extended to the end of the year, December 31st. That one's huge. If a company is unable to hire back an employee or someone who's similarly qualified, or the company cannot achieve the same business activity from February 15th, 2020 or earlier, then the company is excused for not achieving the restored full-time equivalent headcount, and the forgiveness of the loan will not be affected. Also, previously, the loans had a 6-month deferral before the first repayment installment, and the note was repaid over a 2-year period at 1% interest. Now, after the most recent changes, the first payment for the loans are not due until 10 months after the close of the loan period, and the payment of the loan can be made over a 5-year period. The interest rate still remained unchanged at 1%. So that's, they're being a lot more flexible. Companies may still defer payroll taxes. Previously, the deferment was until the lender let companies know how much of the PPP loan was to be forgiven. Now the payroll taxes are automatically deferred through the end of 2020, no matter when companies are informed of the forgiven amount. So it actually seemed to make things simpler instead of the other way around after the latest congressional changes. If you have an opportunity to attend a webinar put on by a financial institution you received your funding through, I highly recommend you do so. I am not going to go into the details today of how to fill out the form. It's 11 pages long, but it would be beneficial for you to attend as there are a lot of nuances. Forgiveness application should be submitted to the same bank that you received your funding from. Our bank specifically is going to pre-fill as much information as they can and have us submit the form electronically. Each bank will be different, so I don't recommend just going to the SBA site, downloading the form. Things may change here still. I haven't seen that the form got updated since Friday, so I think that's still coming. I know when we applied, we had to keep re-signing the form because it kept changing a little thing. So I'm kind of anticipating that with this process too. So just check with your bank before starting. We do need to calculate the amount we're eligible for and include supporting documentation. So just a heads up, you're going to need to provide third-party payroll reports, 941 filings, bank statements, health insurance statement, retirement plans, even a copy of your lease or bank statement. Those are just some examples of things you might need. The biggest takeaway here is that you need to approve the expense was incurred and the expense was paid. If your rent was due and you didn't pay it, it does not qualify to be forgiven. So just make sure your expenses were incurred and paid, and you have to prove both.
You know, I just had thoughts too. You talked about working with the bank, and I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right that our bank, our contact at the bank has just been so super helpful on making this all go through.
Yes, the banks. I don't think they knew what they got pulled in and really rose to the occasion. They had to learn this fast. They had to implement new things. I know ours worked long hours, nights, and weekends just to get people their applications in and get their funding to them. So yeah, definitely hands up to the banking staff over throughout the United States for sure.
And I guess the reason I wanted to say that is knowing that we have had such a good experience with our banker. It really goes through so much of the words that I've used throughout this whole series is we will get through this together. The bank is one of those together people, and I hope all of you have had that same experience in working with your bankers. And if you haven't, that might be a tip off that it might be good to look at a different banker perhaps. But I just can only speak from our experience, not just with this, but our bank has been just a rock solid partner. So lean on them. That's what they're there for.
Yep. Moving on to covered expenses. So these are amounts that can be forgiven. Payroll. So the same rules apply as when we applied for the loan. So payroll expenses can include compensation, vacation, sick leave, health, dental, and vision benefits, just the employer portion, not the employee portion that they pay. State and local taxes, hazard pay and bonuses. That was something new that they added in. So if you gave out bonuses because your employees did continue to work during this this time, that can be included as a forgivable expense. And then non-payroll expenses include mortgage interest, rent, and utility payments. So again, you'd have to, have your utility invoice. Rent would be your a copy of your lease or agreement. Those with that, you're just going to have to prove everything. Safe harbor provisions. If reset salary or number of FTE, which is full-time equivalent, is restored by December 31st, no deduction is required. It used to be that we had to get their pay back up to what they were before COVID, or get the full-time staff equivalent up by the end of June. Now you have until the end of the year to get that back up to where it should be. And then calculation tip for you. So as you dig into the form, you're gonna learn they're offering different ways to calculate things. And the biggest takeaway I got from both of those webinars I attended were, if there's two ways to calculate something on the form, take the time to figure it out both ways and use the one that's most advantageous to your business. Because one may be higher than the other, and you don't want to leave money on the table if you don't have to. And some of you did on the survey indicate that you have not received funding. If you have not applied for or received any PPP funding, check with your bank. There are still funds available. Some people I heard did apply, but the funding ran out, and then maybe they didn't submit their form again. I don't know if that was a hiccup or a glitch or whatever, but there are still funds available, so it's not too late to apply. And now you have the whole end of the year to incur those expenses too, so it's definitely worth doing it. And that's actually all I have, Dave.
All right, well, it's a great high-level overview, and just like you said, this is something that I don't think this whole program has stayed still for a moment. I know I've seen you come in and your eyes are pointing one way, else you see something else come in, and all of a sudden you're spinning around in a whole different direction. It's a lot of work, but I know for those that are taking advantage of it, it's worth the effort, and
Yep.
it's a big deal.
And on that note, so I have not calculated our forgiveness yet. I was really waiting until they finalize some of these changes. And I feel I'm at a good point now, like things have settled enough until of course we get the form. But it would be, I feel comfortable it's worth my time playing with numbers now. There's been spreadsheets floating around to do things, but now it's okay to start now. So.
Everyone needs a secret weapon like Joanna that lives in the numbers. So it's worth the effort. That takes us to the end of this webinar, and I'm going to just talk a little bit about where we're going also, because it also takes us to the end of this webinar series. This whole webinar series really was built around helping you survive during coronavirus and thrive afterwards. And it feels a little bit bittersweet for me to say that, but I think we've achieved that. I hope we have. I hope that you found the value in this webinar series. And we are all continuing to work through coronavirus together. I hinted at it earlier. It's not the top story any longer. So I think we're ready to move on. You know, this program is in place. We're ready to move on, but we're not done. We've got more work to do here, from marketing ideas for printers to help you sell more printing. There is more coming, but we are going to take a break from this webinar series and see what it turns into. First of all, one thing I should be really clear on this too. We started running these webinar series twice a week, and we transitioned to one where it was the broader topics like today's on Tuesdays, and we moved to the Thursday webinars, which started to have a little bit more focus specifically for marketing ideas for printers subscribers. That will continue. We see so much value in that. We get a lot of great feedback from that. So we're going to keep going on that Thursday webinar, perhaps under a different banner, but we want to keep that going to help you as our marketing ideas for printers subscribers to continue to thrive. Everyone's invited, but we'll keep that one nice and tightly dialed into our marketing ideas for printer subscribers. So keep on showing up for those on Thursdays with Trish. Our desire is in everything we do to help you sell more printing. I don't mind saying that when we started this series, I spent some sleepless nights on behalf of you. How can we help printers survive? That's where this webinar series came from. We want to keep that going, and that was a really tough thing for us to pull off. It took a lot of effort, but I'm so glad we did, because it helped build this community. I wasn't expecting to quite have to go like this here, but I do want to show that passion that we have, not just during coronavirus, but on my screen now. This is our page, coronavirusresourcesforprinters.com. We're not giving up, not by a long shot. And so I do want to invite all of you to keep on joining us for these webinars. And there's one that you may or may not know of, and I want to make sure that you see it. And if you go to any page on our website and go to that top link, marketing, scroll down to resources. And under resources, that last link, you'll see that resources link, and you'll see the Sell More Printing with Marketing Ideas for Printers webinar series. This is our passion, folks. This is what I want to invite you to come back to over and over again. All of the archives are here. You can look at those. This is predating coronavirus. There's so much valuable information here, and I would invite you, if you're not already signed up for these, please join us on these, the Sell More Printing webinar series. This is a big deal. This is our passion. We are dedicated to walking right beside you to help you sell more printing. It's our honor, it's our privilege, it's our responsibility to come alongside you as we've all found a way to get through this together. I thank you for joining me on this journey through the duration of this really interesting time that we've been in during coronavirus. We're not out of it yet, but we've crossed that hump. We're going to keep on pushing through it, whatever it is, if it's coronavirus, if it's other events in the world. We're going to be right here by your side. It's our honor to do that. Thank you for joining us today and for all of the other webinars. I'm going to roll that last bit of video one last time and invite you to stick around for the survey. Appreciate you all. Stick around for the survey.